Pick a move in the ring. You can hit me with the words you fling.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Fight Podcast. I am Nick Atkin in Hong Kong. It is May 7th. I'm joined by Mr. Christopher Edwards-Bailey in the South China Morning Post studio in Times Square. We are also joined by John Hyon-ko, as usual, over in Korea, Mr. JHK MMA, and also we're taking it global. We're going with Tom Taylor in Canada. Tom, great to have you on the show. It's been a while. And yeah, we're going to recap UFC 250. I guess the first place to start, we've got to go with Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer. Dominant, very dominant, unanimous decision in the main event. Another piece of history for Amanda. John, let's start with you. Your thoughts on Amanda?
What can you say? She's one of the greatest of all time, men and women. The performance was what we expected. We didn't expect anything less. I guess a lot of people expected her to go in there and finish the fight, which, I don't know. I wonder why she's not finishing fights, though. That's the question I have. Is like, why is she deciding to go all 5 rounds? She said something about that she wanted to prove that she could go 5 rounds. We already know you could go 5 rounds. You went 5 rounds with a Shevchenko a few times, so it's not like you can't go 5 rounds. So like we need to get you in there and finish these fights, and prove, and make it more clear that you're the GOAT. Because right now she's tied, in my opinion, with Cyborg, even though she beat Cyborg. But yeah, it's there's not really much to talk about. It's like there's more to talk about is what's next for her. There's a lot of options, I think, that are on the table for her. A lot of people say she's cleaned out the divisions and all that stuff, but I don't believe so. I feel like she has a few fights out there that she can take in the next year.
Yes, Chris, we talked about it a little bit in the elevator when I came to pick you up from downstairs because they wouldn't let you in. We were thinking, what does Amanda do now? Is it best that she takes a bit of time off, a bit of maternity leave?
Yeah, I think she should just enjoy the birth of her first child. At least take 6 months out because the division really needs to be sorted out, who she needs to fight next. I mean, if you go through the rankings, there's not really much there for her. Maybe Pena. Pena has a great ground game, but there's no one who really stands out. She's just technically better than everyone else. She's got a size advantage, it seems, over everyone else. She's more powerful. I really just don't. There's no standout performer in the division apart from Amanda Nunes. I don't want to take anything away from her. She is 100% the GOAT, the greatest woman of all time, arguably the GOAT. So, yeah, it's really hard to know where to go from, but an absolutely fantastic performance. And to go back to what John said on the finishing, my only critique of this performance would probably be that final round. I actually think she held back a little bit. I felt as if she didn't want to finish Felicia, and that would be my only criticism.
Well, the scorecards had it 50-44, 50-44, and 50-45. Tom, we'll go to you. Do you think this should have been stopped either by the referee or should Felicia Spencer's corner have stepped in after that 4th round? I think Felicia Spencer had already taken 76 shots to the head. She had a big hematoma developing. There was no way she was going to win this fight, right?
Yeah, I mean, by the time the fight was over, there was 2 prevailing feelings. On the one hand, you were cognizant of the fact that you were witnessing the greatest female fighter of all time in action, doing her thing, another dominant win. But on the other hand, we watched Felicia Spencer get the crap beat out of her for the duration, and perhaps to an unnecessary degree. Towards the end of that 4th round, when she was really in trouble, I really felt like the corner could have stopped it between the 4th and the 5th. They probably could have stopped it earlier. Honestly, I think by the halfway point of the fight, even it was quite clear that Felicia didn't have a whole lot to offer in terms of offense, and the cost obviously was that she was taking a ton of damage. So if it were up to me, if I were her coach, which of course I'm not, I think I probably would have stopped the fight to preserve her for a later day. But these fighters never seem to want to quit. Anthony Smith didn't want his corner to throw in the towel, and I'm sure Felicia probably would have had the same viewpoint.
Yeah, my only
one thing extra. Go ahead, Chris.
My only critique with that is the difference between the Anthony Smith fight and this fight is that Anthony Smith actually probably did win the 1st round and still had a chance after the 3rd round of winning the fight, because he could have come back and had a chance to win it in the 4th or the 5th It obviously didn't go that way, and he ended up taking a lot of damage. But I just got the feeling in this fight that I think we all kind of knew after the third round it was kind of over. And what upset me about this fight is that while Anthony Smith showed the heart of the lion, I don't know if I saw that from Felicia Spencer. I don't want to say bad about any fighter, but I just thought she was in survival mode. It was more like Anthony Smith when he fought John Jones. I think they were just trying to get to the 5 rounds. She wasn't really going for like some mad Imanari roll or a crazy Superman punch or anything like that. And some of the times when she was just on the floor doing nothing, to me, it just looked a bit sad. And it wasn't main event caliber standard of a fight for me.
I'd have to disagree. You know, I thought that they had no. I feel like they should. You know, they wouldn't even thought about throwing in the towel in this fight. You know what I mean? Like, she was getting beat up, but she wasn't getting like smashed. You know what I mean? Like, there's some fights that we've watched where the fighter's getting smashed and they still don't stop the fight. You know, bloody. You know, of course her face was messed up. She had that huge hematoma on her head. But man, she was continuing to fight though. You know what I mean? Even though she wasn't winning the fight at all. And one thing that was interesting about this was there seemed to be no plan B for Felicia. It seemed like there was plan A, and then we just go with plan A, and there's no backup plan. And that's what fatigued me in this fight. Like, I was like, man, what's going on with the game plan? Like, why aren't they switching it up? What is, you know, the coaches are not guiding her, you know, to the path that she needs to go to try to get a victory. And that's what frustrated me throughout the fight. But I don't feel like they should have thrown the towel at any moment. I feel like right now people are just really trigger happy on this throwing in the towel thing after, you know, the first couple of events that we watched. So yeah, that's just, you know, me watching the fight and seeing people on Twitter saying like, you know, everybody wants to be first. And it seems like on Twitter, everybody's trying to be first at saying something. And it's like this time it was throwing the towel or who can get on ESPN? Let me say something so I can get on ESPN, right? It could be part of that too.
Yeah, I do agree slightly. I mean, I don't know if you guys could hear it. I think it was just after the third round. Her coaches said to Felicia, we've just got past the feeling out stage. And I thought the feeling out stage was maybe the first minute, 2 minutes, maybe even the first round. But to be 60% of the way through a fight and call that we've just got past the feeling out stage seems really, really strange. I would assume the feeling out stage would be the first few minutes or the first round. So that perplexed me.
All right. Well, it was a slightly weird main event given the rest of the card was full of awesome finishes. Let's move on, I guess, straight to that co-main event. Cody Garbrandt defeated Rafael Assunção via brutal knockout, 4:59 of round 2, just before the bell went. Cody Garbrandt is back. Tom, I'm going to throw it to you. How impressive was he today?
I'm usually the first person to criticize Joe Rogan for his hyperbole, calling things, you know, the best ever of this, or, you know, whatever, the greatest this, the greatest that. But that was one of my favorite knockouts I've seen in a very long time. I mean, the fact that it was at the buzzer added a lot of drama, but just in terms of just the technique and the power, man, he just leaned into that punch and turned the lights out. That was an incredible knockout. And that was probably, the best possible way to rebound from 3 straight knockout losses is with a violent knockout win of your own.
And I suppose that ends his idea of moving down a weight division, right?
I think so, and he sort of alluded to that pre-fight. I think that his focus for now, at least, is on the bantamweight title and not so much on the drop down to flyweight, which I think is a good move.
Yeah, let's have a little look at this. Chris, look at the aftermath here. I'll bring it up on screen. This says it all, doesn't it?
So calm, so cool, so collective, and the maturation of Cody Garbrandt in this fight seemed absolutely fantastic. I'm not really a fan of his. I don't really like him. But he is a fantastic fighter, so I'll give him that. And for the first time in a really long time, we've actually seen him have a game plan, stick to his game plan, not let his emotions get in front of him. I thought actually all fight week, considering how loud and brash he can usually be, he was very, very quiet. So obviously his change in camps have definitely worked out for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's with Mark Henry now, right?
Yeah.
There was a moment in the fight, I think he dropped him in the first round or earlier in the second round, and he pointed at him, and I worried for a moment that he was starting to get a little too excited and that he was going to start kind of throwing the technique out the window and really swinging. But even once he started to land and find his range, he still stayed measured. He didn't get overexcited, and he waited for the right shot, and it just happened to come at the last second of the second round, which was obviously an incredible thing.
All right, I want to just. Did you hear Cormier's reaction? This is hilarious. Let's just get this. Brilliant. Yeah, we love. Sorry, Daniel, cutting you off there. Yeah, great knockout. And when you saw that, you saw Sean O'Malley? We'll get to him in a bit, but he obviously had the first fight on the main card, and he had a brilliant walk-off knockout. But was this one even better? John, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's better. The reason why it's better is because it's against top competition. And when you're fighting top competition, to get a finish like that is much, much harder. I was very, confused by what Assunção was doing in that fight. You know what I mean? It was almost like he gave that fight to Garbrandt. He knows what he needs to do against Garbrandt. He needs to pull Garbrandt in to a firefight. You know what I mean? I don't understand why he didn't do that. He has the ability to take shots, right? Even Joe Rogan told us that, he's one of the toughest guys in the bantamweight division, the history of the bantamweight division. And he didn't even try to do that. He just kind of danced around with Garbrandt and let Garbrandt get comfortable, let Garbrandt control the fight and build the confidence. And that's the most dangerous Garbrandt that we can expect out of him. And that's what happened. He got into that zone, and you saw it in the slow motion of that knockout. He was in the zone against the fence. He just dipped and then just cocked it back and just flatlined Assunção. I think that Garbrandt should move his camp completely over to Mark Henry and just work with Mark Henry. I think that Mark Henry's a real coach, a guy, a mind that needs to be with Garbrandt. Garbrandt physically talented, naturally athletic. It's just the mind. And I think Henry can mold that mind into another championship contender or another belt even. So I think that he looked phenomenal. But he's still going to go in there, and we're going to see flashes of him doing what he did before. But if he stays with Mark Henry, he might not, and we'll see something better, like what Gus, we saw with Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, Cody Garbrandt winning one of 4 performance of the night bonuses, along with Sean O'Malley and Aljamain Sterling and Alex Perez. Cody, he said it himself, this division is on effing fire. It's true, isn't it? A real showcase tonight for the bantamweights, Chris?
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic for the whole division. I think it just shows you the depth in the division. Stacked from 1 to 15. It's not like most of the other divisions. I mean, if you compare it to some of the women's divisions, definitely more stacked. And the quality seems to be there. And I really like what the UFC did, getting a lot of contenders on the same card, because I think, it's not the biggest card, but anyone who's watched this now will have a vested interest in this division, and it will bring more talking about it. And because they all fought on the same night, you can compare everyone much more evenly. And I think everyone right now in their heads is trying to put together their best fight combinations or who they think should be the champion. I mean, right now in this division, arguably there's 3 or 4 guys who could call themselves the champion or the best in the division. So hopefully we're going to have some fun fights in the future, because they're all going to be put together and we're going to find out who is the number 1.
Indeed. Well, why don't we move to Aljamain Sterling defeating Cory Sandhagen via a rear naked choke at 128 of the first round. Tom, talk us through it. A really impressive performance from Aljamain after almost a year out, pretty much to the day.
Yeah, it was amazing. And, from the early vantage point, I really kind of felt like this was going to be a close back and forth fight. And, I kind of envisioned after 3 rounds that we'd have a very close fight on our hands. Obviously not so. That was as lopsided as they come. Sterling just, took the back, got the choke right away. And what a way to assert yourself, at a time when there's not really any clear contenders for the vacant bantamweight throne. I mean, he screamed his own name from the mountaintops there. That was just a flawless victory.
John, were you slightly disappointed in Cory's performance there?
Yeah, somewhat disappointed in his performance. I expected what Tom expected. I expected a long, drawn-out fight where these guys are going to be able to show a lot of their striking and big up to Sterling. He showed his veteran savvy. He showed flawless game planning and execution, and pretty much put on the best performance of his UFC career, when a lot of a lot was at stake with this fight, like the number one contendership, a title shot was at stake in this fight. And he came out clearly made a statement. And I'm pretty sure Peter Yan sitting at home, like more worried, not that much worried, but a little bit more worried than he was before.
Yeah, Peter Yan said congratulations to Aljamain on Twitter. Looks like Peter Yan's going to fight Jose Aldo for the vacant title, but Aljamain has got to be next after that, right?
Oh, Aljo 100% has to be the number one contender after this. Yeah, and I think he has the ability to beat anyone. I have to say, big up all my Jamaican yardies out there, flying the flag. Hopefully we can get a UFC in Jamaica. It would be fantastic. And I mean, he just showed off how much that experience counts. And also, I thought Sandhagen also, I mean, if they fought this fight 10 out of 10 times, it probably won't end this fast or finish this fast, because he is a fantastic fighter in himself. But I just think that does show you that in the UFC, you do have to have fight after fight after fight in the UFC to just build that level higher and higher and higher, because this is the best organization in the world.
Yes, Aljamain Sterling. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's a real shame that they're angling for that Jose Aldo and Peter Yan fight, because I mean, that's a farce. I love Jose Aldo as much as the next guy. In fact, he's probably one of my favorite fighters ever, a true legend of the sport. But there are two very, very clear top contenders in this division right now. One of them is Yan, and the other is Aljamain, who won tonight. So, I mean, it's just silly that those aren't the two guys that are fighting for the vacant title, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen. Anything can change if Aldo has more visa issues, or it's going to be Fight Island, perhaps. Yeah.
The thing is with Sterling is he didn't take much damage tonight. If something happens with Aldo, if Aldo can't get in the country, I mean, what's to say he can't fight in 2 months' time? I would assume after tonight, it didn't take very long. I'd assume he'd still be fresh. So, fingers crossed, toes crossed, and hopefully Aldo can get the fight he deserves.
Yeah, John. Rumors that one is going to be Fight Island. You were hearing, right?
Yeah. That's what I've been hearing. July 11th, or maybe even, what is it, June 27th card will be on Fight Island, and reports are stating that it's going to be in Abu Dhabi on some man-made island, most likely the island that Habib and who was it, Dustin
Poirier,
that island. So we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's not 100% confirmed, because I was talking to some people that are fighting on the UAE Warriors card coming up next weekend, and they've been there some of them for 3 weeks quarantined when they got into the country, and some of them, if they didn't meet the deadline, they wouldn't even be able to get into the country, and they have to be tested and separated from everybody, and it's just a big headache, a lot of protocol. And I'm just wondering, is the UFC going to go through all that protocol, flying all the fighters out 2-3 weeks before the event and testing them and making sure that everybody's safe, or are they just going to, do the same thing they've been doing in the States? I just wonder. I wonder what the government, of Abu Dhabi is going to allow the UFC to do, because I'm pretty sure they have a contract, right? Like a 5-year or 3-year contract with Abu Dhabi. So if they do have a contract with the country, then they're probably going to allow them to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and the Abu Dhabi Sports Authority investment firm, I think they have a 10% stake in Zuffa, or what Zuffa is now. I can't remember the full name. And I think Herbert Burns, in his post-fight interview, apparently he mentioned he wants to fight in Fight Island, and he said it was in Abu Dhabi. So maybe he knows something we don't.
Well, they reported it yesterday. The rumors were out like a week ago, but then yesterday a website actually reported the rumors, or I don't even know. Until the UFC like announces it officially, I don't believe it really. You know what I mean? Like, how can we believe it? Because there's nothing. There's no pictures. There's nothing. There's nobody like that has any power coming out and telling us that it's in Abu Dhabi. We just hear the rumors and hearsay. So I hope it's not in Abu Dhabi. You know why? Because the fighters are not going to want to fight out there. It's like 100,000 degrees out there, and it's crazy. They don't like fighting out there. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the media don't like it either, or the photographers. I remember they were all melting down cage side for that Abu Dhabi fight, Khabib and Poirier. Anyway, as Chris alluded to, yes, Sterling was calling for his next fight. If he gets the title shot, or if he wins the title, his first defense, he wants to take it to Jamaica, South stadium there. But yeah, Chris, he also had some touching words, I think, on the Black Lives Matter movement, everything happening in America. We could have a quick listen here.
Especially in America, we got a lot going on in this country. It's a great country, but there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and especially the injustices happening to minorities all across America. So this one's for everybody back home fighting the good fight, protesting. I support you guys. I'm with you guys all the way. I wish I could be home and be part of it, but I had to handle business.
Yeah, nice speech by the Funk Master. Obviously, there are bigger issues at the moment affecting the country.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's just good to see sportsmen talk out about politics and be willing to face it rather than just hiding away from it. And I hope in some way, this can all end and we can find some unity and build towards a new future. I mean, I think even today there's a Black Lives Matter march, but I don't think they got a letter of no objection in Hong Kong. But we've seen them in Sydney, we've seen them in Auckland, London, and I think they've been all over the world. I think Tokyo as well. So they have been going on everywhere. So hopefully we can find some unity through all this chaos. Yeah,
the UFC are getting involved. A lot of fighters are really standing up. It's good to see that they're not shying away from it, because there have been things that have been ignored in the past. But anyway, we better move on down this card. Tom, we'll go to you again. Neil Magny, he gets the unanimous decision over Anthony Rocco Martin. Any complaints for Anthony there?
I don't think so. I mean, the scores were a little wacky. I think Magny got a few 30-27s, which were probably a little bit unjust, but I found it was a fairly decisive win for him either way. Just a classic Magny performance. He's a slow starter, but he really starts to pick up as things start moving on. And like they said during the broadcast, I mean, it's kind of a disservice that all of his fights aren't 5 rounds because he performs so well down the stretch. He gets better and better as the fight goes on. Tonight was a classic example. And I noticed he's not in the rankings anymore. I didn't realize that. But I'd like to see him matched up with a top 15 guy again after this, I think.
Yep, here are the scorecards there. As you said, a bit all over the place. Yeah, John, good for Magny as well. That's back-to-back. He dominated the Li Jingliang, our boy from China. But that division is so difficult, isn't it, to get anywhere at the moment?
Yeah, if you look at the rankings, the top 15, Tom said he needs a ranked fighter. He needs to compete against one of those guys, and that's definitely true. I 100% believe that. I feel like they should put the Vicente Luque fight back on. They were lined up to fight earlier, or actually last year, and that fight fell through. So why not? Why not put them together? Vicente's ranked at number 13. The 15 is Connor, 14 is Pettis, 13 is Luque. I feel Luque would be a good matchup and a fun matchup. It'll allow Neil Magny to show more of his skill set. It's a good opportunity for Magny. Luque, it's a good opportunity for him to beat a guy with a name. I think Magny has about like 20 something fights in the UFC, so he's a gritty veteran. It's a good matchup, or even put him against Pettis. Pettis, where is he? What's he gonna do? If he wants to fight welterweight, that's a good name too. There's not many options for Magny, to be honest with you. He could keep fighting mid-tier guys, but he'll just end up beating them just the way he beat Martin. And yes, the scorecards are terrible. Like, I don't understand how you give Magny 30-27. That doesn't make any sense. But he won the fight. It was closer than what the scorecard said, but he seemed like he won that fight. I feel like he won that fight in the 3rd round, where Rocco was really tired and gassed and moving backwards and getting hit. And that's where he kind of took over the scorecards, in my opinion. But yeah, moving forward, Magny, I see him, put him with Luque. Let's see a firefight.
I want to see him fight Wonder Boy.
Definitely.
Wonder Boy.
Yeah, it's a big step up, but I'd like to see that one. Two long-range guys.
He's calling himself now. He's coming into his own a bit, isn't he, Tom?
He is. Yeah, I was surprised to hear the nickname. I didn't catch it when Bruce Buffer was introducing him, but I heard it when he was.
Said he's never had a nickname before. So.
Yeah, he's due for one, and he's a guy who's kind of struggled to stand out a little bit over the years. There's no question that he's a good fighter, and he has been for quite a while. But he's struggled to really take that jump into the into the welterweight limelight. And, doing little things like that, getting a little more active on social media, giving yourself a nickname, especially a nickname that kind of pertains to a certain country or region, helps people in that place relate to you. I think that was a really good decision. It's just a little thing, but I think it's going to kind of help him kind of gather some new fans probably.
Oh, yeah,
It's
definitely.
lazy though. It's a lazy nickname. I'm just gonna say that.
It's kind of been done
sensation,
before.
Come
yeah.
on. Anything with Asian sensation. You could be like Jamaican sensation, the Asian sensation. It's lazy. Come on. If you're gonna have a nickname, do something better than that. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, Tom, though.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I thought quite interesting about this fight, I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, but people like, I think, Ben Askren and Eve Edwards, Ben Askren who fought over and won, and Eve Edwards who fought in Pride, they were actually saying that for them, this is actually one of those fights that shows that the 10-9 must system doesn't really work in the UFC. And they were saying actually this fight would be better scored as a whole fight, because they said under the 10-9, they both thought that this could go either way, and that Magny clearly won the whole fight. And I thought it was just interesting to see that conversation brought up again. And watching the fight and before the results came out, reading those tweets, actually, it did make me think that, is the 10-9 must system for these very close fights. It doesn't always work out. And I think that's why you get such a divergent scorecard between all the judges.
All right, well, let's get to the start of the card. We had a brilliant performance from Sean O'Malley. The Sugar Show 2.0 keeps rolling. Sean O'Malley defeating Eddie Wineland via knockout at 154 of round one. John, I'm going to start with you because you said Wineland was going to give O'Malley problems, but in the end, it was not the case.
Yeah, it was not the case. It was very odd that Wineland was hesitant against O'Malley. So maybe Wineland was believing the hype too, and it was getting inside his head, and he was being hesitant. He was being trigger shy. But maybe when he stepped into the cage against O'Malley's just that funky and moves so slick, and he couldn't handle it, and that's what happened. Yeah, it's just that faint uppercut, right cross. That's a sick combination. His striking coach is incredible, man, because he doesn't even have a striking background. He just started MMA like a few years ago, and look at him where he's at right now. It's just insane how talented Sean O'Malley is. And a lot of people still are not on the hype train, but I wasn't on the hype train, but now I am with this performance, against a guy like Eddie Wineland, and the way that he finished him is just, what can he not do? I want to see him take on somebody in the top 15, at the top of the top, at the bottom of the top 15. I look at like John Dodson. He's at like number 13. That would be a big test, because John Dodson has the speed, and he also has the power, and he has a lot of experience, title fight experience, a former title challenger, or even a Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera is ranked number 15. He's coming off a loss, but he's a guy that will engage O'Malley and test him, and maybe even test that chin. Or Ricky Simone is another name that comes up as the next possible challenger for O'Malley. I can see O'Malley fighting in the next 3 months. I was watching an interview before this fight, and he was talking about, man, he wants to be as active as possible because he wants to go, rise up the ranks as quickly as possible. And that 2021 seems to be his goal, to be in title contention. And from what we've seen tonight, it seems like it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time until we see his name in a main event against a big name in that bantamweight division, but slowly work himself up, right? So his next fight should be somebody in that 10 to 15 range.
Yeah, and as you alluded to, he said afterwards, I believe I have the best striking in MMA. And as Chris said before in our preview, he's possibly one of the first fighters who's grown up without focusing on having a background of one martial art. He's grown up on mixed martial arts. It's potentially a dangerous combination, isn't it, Chris? And there's a lot of, as you guys said, a lot of hype behind him, but he's
a lot of hype behind him. A great character. His podcast is fun, not as good as our podcast, I'll say that. But he's absolutely fantastic. Great on the mic. I think he connects with the younger generation. He's got a SoundCloud rapper swagger to some level with the face tattoo, colorful hair. I mean, I know he's Sugar Sean O'Malley. He could be Lil Sugar, I could imagine him dropping a mixtape with that name. But yeah, I think he's got a lot about him. And I think it's just a peak of the future and the way the sport is going to go. We're going to see people who grow up mixed martial artists from the age of 4, 5, 6, and we're going to see a total different skill range. He might be one of the best strikers in MMA, but no offense, Sean, I do probably put Adesanya above you there. Maybe Wonderboy as well, because they do have fantastic striking. But yeah, maybe just within the sport of MMA, he is fantastic and he is definitely up there. And yeah, probably 2021 is probably going to be his year. I mean, you have to look when Conor McGregor first broke through. We fought 4 times in a year. I was looking back at Cody Garbrandt's record. I think in 2016, before he got the title, he fought 4 times in a year. And it does seem to be you have to fight 3-4 times in a year if you really want to have that big explosive come up. And I mean, as I said on the preview, this was his coming out party. His first time on the main card, the start of a pay-per-view, and I think it went with a bang. And you look at him now, and he is actually a bona fide star. The big question is, are you going to put him on a UFC on the ESPN card and headline it, or are you going to move him slowly up the main card? And that's the only question about his future. I think from here, the only way is up. And yeah, I think we've got a future champion on our hands. And it's not often you can say that in this sport because you never really know. You never really know what's going to happen one fight to the next with most people. But I can imagine him getting his hand on a strap, or maybe even a future 2-weight division champion.
Yeah, Tom, do you see gold in Sugar Sean O'Malley's future?
I'm not ready to commit to that quite yet. I mean, it was a great show tonight. Like John suggested, it seemed like Eddie Wineland was just having a hard time getting started. I think part of that is the mystique that O'Malley is already developing, but also the guy is huge for this division. People don't talk about that very much. He's so long, so rangy. And, you could really see that against Eddie tonight. I was thinking a great matchup for him going forward would be John Dodson as well. But that size difference is going to be even more pronounced in that fight. He is going to tower over a guy like John Dodson. The range, the reach difference is going to be gargantuan. I'm not totally sure. I think a fight night main event against a guy like Dodson would be great. You could throw him on a pay-per-view again, but I mean, the guy has such a bright future. Nowhere to go but up for him.
Well, Tom, I'll offer you a little bet.
Bring it.
When he gets his hands on gold, you can buy me a beer or 2.
All right. Well, how about this? Yeah,
Let me give you that, and I'll buy you. You know what? I'll buy you a bottle of champagne when he gets his hands on the featherweight title, because I think Volkanovski, Holloway, I think they should be very scared of him.
I was going to say maybe a beer per belt. Every time he wins a new belt, there'll be another beer.
Okay.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. There are shades of Conor McGregor here, though, without a doubt. And we're going to start seeing the same questions we saw when Conor was on the come up. I'm surprised we're not seeing it yet, but people saying, how does he do against a wrestler? How does he do against a wrestler with a really good chin? And those are questions that need to be answered soon, I would say. So, John Dodson would be a good test for that, I think.
Well, the hype is real, it looks like, for O'Malley, but there was a little bit of a hype train derailment for another guy. This was Chase Hooper. He lost by unanimous decision to Bruce Leroy Caceres on the, I think it was the main event of the prelims. Guys, I guess we'll start with John. Surprised here, or was this just, it was a huge jump in level of opponent for Chase, wasn't it?
It was no doubt a huge jump in level of opponent. Bruce Leroy has over 20 fights in the UFC, and that's more than how many years Chase Hooper has been alive. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I don't understand like the matchmaking here. I thought they could have put him against someone else and kind of build him up more. But if you look at Chase in this fight, he walked forward and almost committed to just getting hit the whole time. Bruce Leroy was just having fun with them. It was almost kind of similar to what Amanda Nunes was doing with Felicia Spencer. It was just that the power, there wasn't as much power in Bruce Leroy's punches, but it's just he was tagging him left and right, and Bruce Leroy, it's going to be hard to submit that guy. He fought Kron. Did Kron submit Bruce Leroy?
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay, he submitted him, but if you compare Kron to Chase Hooper, there's no comparison, man, on the ground. So when he went to the ground, he wasn't really concerned and just took over on the feet, and it was just a pretty simple win on the feet, good exchanges. But Bruce Leroy was winning everything, and Chase Hooper, he kind of showed that he's very one-dimensional in his skill set, and he used that one dimension very well coming up. But now he's facing guys that have a lot of experience and are some, and face some of the best guys in the world. Bruce Leroy fought Yair Rodriguez and went to a split decision. So it shows you what level Bruce Leroy is at, and he's still fighting at high levels. So Chase Hooper, I don't know what he does, man. He needs to face somebody that's coming into the UFC, I think. Give him someone that's debuting. You don't want to feed him to someone else again, just like Bruce Leroy. It's almost like Bruce Leroy, if he would have lost this fight, he would have probably got cut. You know what I mean? Like, that's the type of fight it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we did find out, though, that Chase Hooper, he does have a chin on him. At least that's something going forward.
No, we knew that the first fight, because in the first fight, he got rocked and then took the fight to the ground, took a striker to the ground and submitted him, right? So we know that he has a chin. We've seen it in his fights coming up, outside of the UFC. Yeah. It's just that his striking is not very good. And, he doesn't know how to use his length like a Sean O'Malley. You know what I mean? It seems like he needs to get with a great striking coach. I wish Chase Hooper would go and hang out with Trevor Whitman for a couple of years and see what he can do. You know what I mean? Because his ground is good. It's just his striking just looked weird and awkward and clumsy but he's still young, man.
I think that's the interesting part, because a lot of people on Twitter were calling him Baby Askren or Baby Funk or Ben Askren Jr. and seem to have a very similar fighting style and maybe the same holes in their games, actually.
Yeah, well, Tom, I'm going to throw it to you for Devin Clark defeating Alonzo Manfield via unanimous decision. What did you make of this one?
That was a really fun fight. That was the second fight of the night, I think, correct? It was an amazing way to kind of get things started. I thought Alonzo was going to win that fight. That was an interesting one because they used to share a manager. But yeah, Devin Clark really showed that he's kind of maybe a grittier, more versatile guy than we thought. He really let his hands go tonight. Is he a future title contender? That's a hard question to answer at this point, especially in the light heavyweight division, which is so top heavy. You can do really well outside the top 15, but once you start getting into that top 10, top 5, things start to happen. But he looked really great tonight. I would like to see him get maybe a top 15 foe, someone on the outside of the top 15 now. And I really think that Alonzo still has a bright future as well, too, if he can kind of shore up some of the holes in this game.
John, anything to weigh in, Chris?
About Manfield? Yeah, Manfield, man, he's like he throws bombs, and Devin Clark just showed that he's just too experienced. That experience is a major factor. It seems like in a lot of these fights where that's what happened. That's just Devin Clark's more experienced. He trains with a lot more bigger guys, and he was just able to weather the storm and then just take over with the decisions. But one thing about Devin Clark is, we know he can win fights. We know that he can follow the game plan. Now he just needs to go in there and finish guys. And then that's when everybody will start picking up and getting on that hype train. Until that point, I feel like he's just going to be kind of that mid-tier veteran that's just kind of chugging along. And I've talked to Devin Clark a few times, and he's working all the time on it. So we'll see if he could just take that and in his future performances and be able to finish guys in the future. So we'll see what happens.
I'm with you, John. It's really hard to kind of gain a foothold with fans if you're not getting finishes, particularly in the heavier divisions where that's what fans really expect. I don't think he's going to really catch on with the fans until he starts stringing together not just one finish every now and then, but a couple in a row. He needs to prove himself as a real killer. And that's going to take some clever matchmaking, I think, but I think he does have a really bright future, and there probably are finishes in his future. It's just a question of who he gets next.
All right, yeah, I may have jumped a little bit in the order there. Sorry, guys. Let's get back on track. It was Ian Heinisch actually defeated Gerald Meerschaert via TKO at 1:14 of round one. A lot of drama, Chris, wasn't there, coming into this fight with the corner and the coronavirus positive?
Yeah, it was absolute madness going into the fight. I actually thought this was going to be a more competitive fight than it was, because I thought there was going to be 3 rounds back and forward. I rate both guys. I think they both have a great future in the sport, but I think Ian Heinisch, is that how you pronounce it? I think he was
Heinisch, yeah.
Heinisch. I think he was absolutely fantastic going into it, and I actually hadn't followed much before this fight, but I got to know a lot about him because I watched a fantastic interview with my boy John on Kumite TV. As always, the king of the interviews, the hardest working man in MMA. So definitely everyone out there, go check it out, give it a like, give it a subscribe. But yeah, I think we're actually going to see Heinisch move up and move up and move up. I think he has a relatively high ceiling, and I think he's actually one of those people that we'll see as the opposition against him gets better. I think he raises his game based on his opposition.
Well, let's move on then. Just get through these prelims. Well, this was an emotional one, wasn't it, guys? I guess we'll start with Tom. Cody Sandhagen defeating Brian Kelleher via unanimous decision. Just horrible for Cody coming into this fight after the sudden death of his brother in his sleep. We were all surprised that he was even continuing with this fight, weren't we?
Yeah, I don't think I could have even handled like the post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, having gone through a tragedy of that magnitude so recently. He obviously did a lot more than that. He showed up, went through all the pre-fight protocol, all the coronavirus stuff, jumped through all these hoops for the benefit of everyone's safety. The weigh-ins, the weight cut, and the fight itself. Fights a tough guy like Brian Kelleher, beats him decisively. That just shows the character that guy has. I think a lot of people would have bowed out after the tragedy that he went through. But he showed up and reminded the world, although it was a featherweight fight, reminded the world that he's certainly one of the best bantamweights in the world. And John, I believe it was you that suggested it on Twitter. It's time for a top 5 fight for this guy in the bantamweight division. If not top 5, somewhere in the outer edges of the top 10. Because he's the real deal. He's got the talent. It's time.
Yeah, with all things considered, like him taking the fight and not pulling out and doing what he did to Kelleher, because Kelleher was on a run. He was hot. He was one of the hottest on the block, right? Just taking fight after fight and finishing guys. And Sandhagen, he went in there and did his work and dominated the fight basically. But they fought at featherweight, so it doesn't really do anything for him. But I feel like the UFC owes him a solid, like they owe him something because he took the fight with the tragedy in his life and went in there, won the fight at featherweight. He could have took the fight at bantamweight, because man, that's what's confusing me is like, what happens to fighters if they lose at a weight above their weight class, and what happens to them when they win? Does it even affect their status within the division that they fight in? Because it seems like it doesn't, because Marlon Vera, he's still ranked number 15 and he lost to Song Yadong 3 weeks ago. So I guess it doesn't matter. So let's put Cody in there against a top 5 guy. Give him that opportunity, hook him up. Because the UFC hooks up fighters. Look at Jose Aldo. He's getting a title shot off a loss. So, you know what it is.
The rankings are a bit of a joke. Just speaking of, winning in one division and moving in another, I saw in the latest rankings, Donald Cerrone has moved up 2 spots, or maybe 1 spot at lightweight, despite the fact that he's lost his last 2 fights and both at welterweight. How do you move up in a lower division if you've just lost 2 fights in a heavier division? There's no rhyme or reason to these rankings. I think we all like to pretend there is a modicum of ration to these things, but there isn't. It's a free for all. It's completely just governed by the whim of the rankers, I think, week to week. No disrespect to the rankers, who I'm sure are working hard, but the rankings make no sense.
Yeah, well, it was emotional. Rankings aside, we'll have a quick listen to what Cody said.
It's been real hard. I've been fighting tears all day, just trying to hold everything together. It's just a hard time for me, and I had to buckle up and be a man to get this done, for him, for my family, for myself. And, Brian Kelleher, thanks so much for coming out and doing it tonight.
Yeah, it's tough to watch those kind of things, but you do get a reminder, don't you, sometimes of the human side of the sport, don't you, Chris?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They are fighters and they are some of the toughest people in the world, but, a family tragedy is a family tragedy, and can affect everyone in all sorts of ways. And probably the only reason he was fighting was probably just a distraction to put all the emotions behind him. And I mean, for everyone who doesn't know out there, it was his younger brother, an 18-year-old brother. You know, sometimes, you know, when I first heard in my head, I was thinking, oh, his brother might be in his 40s or whatever. And you think 18 years old and his whole life ahead of him, and you don't, you know, it's just an absolutely heartbreaking thing for anyone to go through. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and it just shows you how brave he was to go and get in the ring. And even if he wouldn't have got in the ring, in my eyes, he still would have been brave. He's practically a champion tonight anyway, and I hope his whole family appreciate what he's done and he's made them proud, and whatever he believes in, maybe his brother's looking down on him and sharing in his success with him.
Yeah, I think
if there's a time for,
go ahead. Sorry, John.
Yeah, if there's a time for the UFC to give a locker room bonus, this is the time.
Yeah, and you know, good reward in terms of matchups. You know, he sort of alluded to that he wants the top guys, and we've already kind of touched on that here. But I mean, you don't go through something like that and not get a reward. I mean, what he went through over the last week and a half is unbelievable. Most of us wouldn't have been able to navigate that stretch. I mean, the guy deserves a big opportunity next time out, and certainly a locker room bonus in the interim.
Well, let's move on then. Okay. Maki Pitolo defeating Charles Byrd via TKO at 1 minute 10 of round 2. John, why don't you walk us through this one?
This was just bombs, you know, coconut bombs. That's what it was. And those coconut bombs landed on Charles Byrd's head. And it seemed like he was out a long time before the ref stepped in. You know, he just covered up and coconut bombs just dropped bombs and busted coconuts on his head. And that's what happened. That's basically, you know, the first round was somewhat competitive, but it seemed like that Maki was just getting his footing, and that second round came in and he just kicked into gear and took him out. And one interesting fact is I believe Charles Byrd retired after this fight, which was his debut in the UFC. So maybe his goal was to just fight in the UFC one day and after that move on with his life. I have no idea. You know how retirements in MMA are like. They're like you know, they're like ice cream sandwiches. You know, everybody has one day in their lifetime.
And they don't last very long, especially when it's hot.
Exactly.
Yeah. We also had on these prelims, we've already done Perez, sorry. I guess we can... Did we do Perez and Formiga?
No.
All right, well, here we go. We'll do it. Alex Perez defeating UCA Formiga via TKO. Another TKO. A lot of finishes on this card. This one was 4:06 of round 1. Chris, want to go through it? Or
Yeah, I had Formiga actually going into this one. I just thought he had a little bit more experience, followed them a little bit more. I was quite surprised with the fight. To tell you the truth, it was on about 6:30 in the morning here. So I had a coffee in one hand and I was watching it through one eye. So there wasn't much of a surprise. It was a pretty solid fight, nothing too special. And yeah, it's early prelims. I'm not the biggest fan always, but we'll see where they go from here. I don't know if you guys have anything more interesting to say.
Tom, maybe because you were probably more awake than any of us being in the correct time zone. What did you make of this one?
That was an exciting performance. I mean, Formiga has been one of the best guys in the world in that weight class since he beat Ian McCall in like 2011 or whatever that was. For a while, he was the number 1 ranked flyweight in the world, and Perez just came in and chopped him down, lumberjack style, you know. So I appreciated that, but I think they said on the broadcast it was the 11th stoppage in UFC history by way of leg kick. So, you know, a little bit of history there. But beating a guy like Formiga, who I think was number 4 heading into this fight, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I think Perez is ready for a huge opportunity. I was thinking maybe even match him up with Brandon Moreno, just so there's like a really clear number 1 contender fight when Davison and Benavidez are done fighting for the vacant title. But that was a huge win. It doesn't get any bigger.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Brandon Moreno or even Alexandre Pantoja would be a good fight. They're right there around that number 5, number 4 range where Alex Perez should be next week when the new rankings come out, but they don't really matter. We just making matchups, right? But you know, if he fights next, either against one of those guys, that should be a number 1 contender fight after Joey B versus Figueiredo, right? Perez, when I talked to him, when I interviewed him, he told me like I asked him like, hey, are you gonna go to the ground with Formiga? You know, he's known for the ground. He's all like, Formiga, he gets caught, you know, in these stand-up exchanges for long periods of time. And I was like, that's kind of true, and that's how he loses a lot of the fights, and that's what basically happened in this fight. Perez was able to draw him into standing with him and finish him with leg kicks. Not even leg kicks, is calf kicks, right? Is that the first time with calf kicks? I think is it the first time with calf kicks? It seemed like it was, because all the other leg kick finishes are to the thighs, or at least to the knee. But anyways, Perez, you know, he wonderful performance. I wish this fight was on the main card, to be honest with you. Like, burying them in the prelims was just terrible that the UFC did that. And both these guys are top 15 fighters, top 10 fighters. But yeah, Perez, he's going to be up there in the flyweight division. We're going to see him fight, you know, one of the big names. And we might even see him, you know, challenging for the title. Who knows?
All right, well, one more fight we can do here. Herbert Burns defeating Evan Dunham via rear naked choke at 120 of round one. Great week for the Burns brothers, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Herbert Burns looked good. I think he actually had some holes in his striking. I mean, coming out, they were saying he's the more accomplished MMA fighter than in the Burns family. I'm not sure about that. He did get caught a few times by Dunham. I think a fantastic submission, and you knew once you got him down, he was going to win. Dunham, my only issue is it's not really a top contender. I mean, I think he's been retired for 2 years. His last notable performance was probably arguably his draw with Beneil Dariush in 2016, was it 2017? His last notable win was probably Gleason Tebow in 2014. Especially 38 years old, and this division is fairly old as the division goes. But they're building a star in Herbert Burns. I actually woke up at 5 a.m. in anticipation of this single fight, and it was built up once again by John over at Kumite TV with a fantastic interview. Big it up. And yeah, really got me going. And I do want to see both the Burns do fantastic. Every interview I've seen with them, they both seem like truly affable guys. And nice to see Herbert Burns in particular get his career back on track with everything that has happened in other organizations.
John, what's going on? My mentions blowing up with stuff from Herbert. What was the beef? Something about Uriah Hall or something, and in the Twitter.
Oh, Ryan Hall.
Ryan Hall, right.
During the interview, I asked him about Ryan Hall, Chase Hooper, Bryce Mitchell, you know, because those are some names that Herbert Burns has been throwing out there in the past 6 months or so of who he wants to fight. And yeah, and he said that, you know, Ryan Hall doesn't want to fight him. He, you know, like he mentioned him in interviews, but he doesn't want to fight him. He wants to fight guys that he has an advantage over. He doesn't want to, you know, favorable matchups. And he said to me, like, if you look at his record, Ryan Hall's record, he hasn't really fought anybody. You know, he's fought guys that are kind of like on the downslope of their careers. You know, he submitted BJ Penn. Is that really a big accomplishment, to be honest with you, right now? Maybe 5 years ago, it's a major accomplishment, but right now it's nothing. So, yeah, he was just pointing out some facts that, you know, facts and his opinions on Ryan Hall. But that's a wonderful matchup. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Ryan Hall's looking to fight somebody in the top 15. He was lined up for Ricardo Lamas. I feel like the UFC is going to probably put that fight back together because they both live in the States, and you know, they're putting on cards in Vegas. Herbert Burns, I look at someone like Mirsad Bektik, a guy that was in the top 15 and he just kind of slid out recently. He's on a 2-fight skid. He's a name. Why not put him against Herbert Burns? It will be a big test. A guy that can really wrestle and he can box. So Bektik would be a good name. Another guy would be a prospect would be like Grant Dawson would be a good fight for him. Grant Dawson also likes to go to the ground. But Herbert Burns, his ground is so good that his striking could look sloppy, but he always has that ground in his back pocket. And that's what he told me. He's all like, hey, I could go strike, and if it doesn't work out and the guy wants to take me down, I'm comfortable on my back. I'll choke you from my back. It's all good. And I'm just like, man, that's a terrifying skill set right there.
Right, Tom, I'm going to give you the final say. I think it's fair to say that expectations were fairly low going into this event, but it was actually really fun. But do you think it's going to do well in terms of pay-per-view buys? What do you think the general interest will have been?
I don't think there was much general interest at all. The pay-per-views, I don't imagine, will be very impressive. not that it really matters for the UFC anymore with this ESPN deal, but looking at the card, it did kind of have that glimmer of a card that even though there's not any really huge names, it had some real, action potential. And on that front, I mean, there's no question it delivered. We had some highlight reel knockouts, had some fun back and forth fights. I mean, it had a little bit of everything. So, pay-per-view blockbuster, perhaps not, but certainly a card we won't forget anytime soon.
Yeah, well, we could talk about this card for a lot longer, but I want to let Tom go to sleep because he's over in Canada. Yeah, but Chris and John, we're going to stick around, I think, to preview next week's show and talk the news. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for recapping UFC 250. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as me, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you all again after a while.